Can I tell you?
Please.
So Cool Beans is the most feedback I've gotten on an episode. So I don't know what's going on.
No, what do you mean feedback? Who's giving you feedback?
I've had multiple people that felt very attacked because
because you said some specific things. Now, was that misdirection, or were you being truthful?
There was an actual person. I've had 2 people from my old work that heard the episode and they were like feeling me out to see if they were the ones, and it wasn't either of them, but they would say it every now and then. But then I've had other people like in my personal life that are like, yeah, I heard that. Like, I say Cool Beans, and I'm like, I'm like, it's nothing against you. And then I do that thing where I say, for the show, I make it a little more, but I'm going to tell you right now, I do hate it that much. Like, I tell them in person, and so I'll probably have to have another conversation that I make it a little more amplified for the show, but I very much do not like when people say Cool Beans or awesome sauce.
One of the things I've been working on in this year is being positive, Steve. Being a little bit more
I forgot about that.
Glass half full.
You've been doing that.
Yeah, you're so used to me being positive now that it's just you're used to it.
Okay.
It's baked in. So one of the things I've been doing is just trying to kind of get outside my head and be a little bit more open and friendly with people, and a little bit I was going to say exhibitionist. That's not the word for it. I'm not that open with people. I'm more of an introvert. Extrovert. I know extrovert.
You've been trying. You tried kombucha. You were offered kombucha. Yeah. You didn't punch him in the face. You went and played golf.
Well, I play golf. Poorly. I have no problem with that. I get to be outside and drink beer.
I'm trying to think of all the ways you're expanding, but you're right. You're a golfer. Yeah. So you own golf clubs.
I own golf clubs is probably a better way to describe it. So one of the things I've tried to be more open and more inviting, getting to know people, I've gotten to know people in my building who I don't necessarily work with. There are other people in the building. Mm-hmm. And I've actually become friends with some of the security team in our building, including Officer Jackson. I'm an early bird. I'm in there, so I get a chance to talk to her most mornings. And we've had things like if I show up with some donuts or some extra food, there's a lot of eating in our office. I make sure she gets a shot at it, and that's kind of helped me get out of my shell.
Right.
A couple weeks ago, brought her some lemon squares that of course I did not make, so they were good. And she offered to reciprocate. She told me, I'm going to get some lemon squares for you, and this kind of turned into a couple other things. And then changed into, I'm going to have a pie for you tomorrow morning.
Wow.
Are you going to be here? I was like, yes. So Officer Jackson makes me a pie. I take it. I go and hide it in my car so the rest of my actual coworkers don't get it. Yeah, it's all for me.
That's amazing.
So then I bring it home, and this is also on a weekend I'm going to see my family.
Yeah.
And at the same time, where I enjoy spending time with Officer Jackson and getting to know her, I really don't know her that well. And I realize I've accepted food from someone that I really don't know, but so well.
Real Steve is coming out.
Yeah. And then the lemon squares have somehow evolved into a pie, which just, again, makes me kind of like the original contract that we've seemed to put together has come together. So I come home, I discuss with my wife Officer Jackson's pie.
Did she know about Officer Jackson before this?
Yeah, I gave him some heads up.
Did you drop an I'm a married man to Officer Jackson like early on, or did you just sort of like make sure she saw the ring?
I do more of a lingering ring thing, and then
I think that works as long as it's out there
and it's not done in a suggestive way. Mm-hmm. So I have this pie, trying to figure out what to do with a pie that I've never. From someone that I'm kind of second guessing that I really don't know. And there's a reason probably why I'm more of a introvert than not.
What kind of pie was it?
Well, I wasn't sure. So
you didn't know at this point.
Yeah. So what I decided to do was just to take it down to visit my family. And, my wife played along with the joke, and we brought some other food. And then we just, here.
It's a good idea.
Here's some cookies. Here's a lasagna. Here's Officer Jackson's pie. Here's some bread. And just kind of threw it out there to see if they recognized.
Right.
And just play it off like, what, You don't know about
Did
Officer
you get a reaction
Jackson's pie.
or was it just taken in stride?
I played it for a while, and then it came time to have the pie. So we unfurl the pie. It's a nicely baked pie. It's brownish. So it could be a variety of things. We weren't sure.
Like maybe it could be a chocolate silk pie or pecan pie.
Yeah, there was
a chess pie.
And again, there's a little bit of not sure what it is, but I went ahead and I was the one to be Neil Armstrong for the pie.
Good for you.
And to report, it was a sweet potato pie.
Ooh.
It was delicious.
Good.
And now Officer Jackson and I are even closer.
That much closer.
Yeah, I was able to explain to her, and thank her sincerely and tell her I shared it with my family.
That was a masterful move. Like when you said that, because you weren't going it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You brought it to your family, and it makes a better story for Officer Jackson. Like it'd be one thing if you went to your car and motorboated the pie, and
which was on the table, frankly.
Oh, absolutely. I have a wonderful lady at my work that makes me food sometimes, and I struggle to make sure it gets all the way home before I at least try it. So I would like to see your family's face when you said, here's the Officer Jackson's pie.
Yeah. Well, I had a message. My parents had contacted me the day after and said, what did Officer Jackson think? And I said, I told her, thank you. And then she also told me to make sure my car was locked because people were going through the parking deck. So
brings it all back to reality.
It's already paying off. My new extroverted positive Steve is. I'm already seeing the results. And maybe this exhibitionist thing. Maybe that's the next level I need to go to.
I like. There's always LARPing, and
yeah, there is. We know people, and I have connections to the security industry too.
Good job, Positive Steve. I think this is the peak of Positive Steve. I'm very proud of you. I'm glad you did that. You shared it with your family, and it was good. So. On that note, let's roll on with the show. Welcome to Origin of Speaksies. My name is Scott. I'm here with my friend Steve, Positive Steve.
So today's idioms have a Swedish theme.
Oh, the Swedes.
And the first one I wanted to look at was Stockholm Syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, just a little bit of background on why we're thinking about Sweden. So as we've talked before, my background is a bit of a European mutt.
Mm-hmm.
There's some German. There's some Belgian, there's some Irish, and also some Swedish. There's a line of Lindeborg that I come from. So don't hear too much about the Swedish. No. Because they're kind of out there staying neutral from wars. And maybe that's why I don't even talk about them that much. Because, internally, the German part of me is wanting to fight with everyone. The Irish is probably having a little bit too much to drink. The Belgians are just kind of being looked down on by the French. And then the Swedes are just hanging back there.
Yeah.
Staying north of everybody. So Sweden, of course.
Positive Swede.
Positive Swede. That sounds like a rapper I wouldn't want to listen to. But there's something to think about. So Sweden, as we know, in the northern part of Europe, surrounded by Norway to the west, Finland to the east, and connected to Denmark by a bridge tunnel, in case you weren't sure of that.
Sweden's awesome because...
They're
known as being, I guess, kind of neutral.
Yeah.
Everyone, whenever, nowadays especially, everybody that complains about America, for whatever reason, likes to point out the Nordic countries. So people love Sweden. But I love Sweden because when you think about them, it conjures up, like, I won't name names, but you think about other countries and it's not always positive things. When I think about Sweden, I think about meatballs. I think about bikini models.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the Swedish Chef.
Yeah.
For example, there's not a negative connotation that comes with Sweden. So I'm excited. We're talking about Swedish stuff tonight.
Yeah. And I know for a long time I've owed you a Swedish Chef, and it's probably not going to happen tonight. But just to throw out there, since you brought him up, if you ever get a chance to watch the Swedish Chef with someone who's from China, I had the chance at work a couple months ago just to show a Chinese person that, and just to see what they thought from the context. And really, that was almost more entertaining than the Swedish Chef, which is
you're bringing
tough to
lemon
say.
squares. You're bringing the Swedish Chef.
Spreading,
and that's not even your main job. Like, you're not there as like to cheer people on.
But that's what I end up doing.
That's amazing. All right, cool.
So Sweden, the capital of Sweden is Stockholm. Been the capital since 1523. Something I learned recently about Stockholm is it's actually spread over 14 islands.
Ooh, that's amazing.
So kind of a cooler place, but because they're so close, they're up north so far that during the winter they get 6 hours of daylight during the peak of winter, but during the peak of summer they get 18 hours of daylight.
That's amazing.
So they got that going for them, and maybe that's where all the bikini modeling comes from,
I guess.
So
but then they go super goth, like so it's like bikini models during the summertime, and then all of a sudden
isn't that more Norway?
Well, yes, but I'm just thinking if you only have 6 hours of sunlight, all of a sudden you're getting pasty, and you gotta.
And maybe you're like, let's set some churches on fire and listen to really bad music.
I need a Swedish girlfriend. That's what I need. But like in Sweden, not here.
Yeah.
That way you get both ends of the spectrum. You get the summer girl, and then you get the gothy.
And that'd be a great story to explain to people. I have a girlfriend. She's Swedish. She lives in Sweden. She doesn't live here.
I look. Let me show you her Facebook profile.
Yeah.
She has 1,000 friends. So
the first one I wanted to look at with our Swedish theme tonight is Stockholm Syndrome. So before we get into the origin of that and the definition, is that a phrase or idiom that you've ever used? Or
I've never used it, but it's cool. Like I think I have an idea of what it means.
Sure.
And I think it's a good one I'm excited to talk about. I don't know the story that led to it or anything, but I believe I understand what it means. Mm-hmm. And it's this interesting psychological thing where you start to identify with your captors, right? Like it's not the other way. It's
correct.
Yeah.
And we'll actually talk about what the opposite of that is also. It's one of the things, some of the other syndromes I uncovered with this.
Interesting.
So as you mentioned, Stockholm Syndrome is a condition in which a hostage begins to develop an alliance with their captors during a hostage situation. It's been seen as a survival strategy. Mm-hmm. And it actually originates, Stockholm Syndrome is called that because of an incident that happened during a bank robbery in 1973. Jan Erik Olsen was a prisoner on leave, entered a bank with an intention to rob it. The police followed him in, and a hostage situation ensued. For 6 days, Olsen held 4 bank employees at gunpoint. And during this time, the bank employees came to care for their captors during this whole thing, to the point that even afterwards, after they were hostages, they stayed in touch. One of them actually met with the bank robber following, and their families even became friends. Wow. So during this situation, so there was a hostage situation for 6 days. It ended with the police taking the bank robber down. But during that time, the hostages came to bond with them, which is a strange occurrence.
It is, but it's also completely understandable when you think about it.
And I think when you talk about uses of it, not to understate the mental terror that you must go through as a hostage. But I think most time when I've discussed it with other people, with work situations where you have a boss that's kind of a jerk, but you find a way to adapt to that, and you almost have a little bit of that. So one famous example of Stockholm Syndrome was Patty Hearst. Patty Hearst is a great-granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, who Citizen Kane is based on. So she comes with some good quality.
And when about was that? Was that 70s, 60s?
Says mid-70s. The Symbionese Liberation Army, or SLA, kidnapped her. And then she took her in. She became, I believe her name was Tanya, is what she thought it was. Right. And was famously seen in footage robbing a bank holding a machine gun. And there seemed to be some speculation that what she did, she really didn't have Stockholm Syndrome. She was kind of in with it a little bit. I think that's what people speculate. Rich girl wanted to do stuff. But was charged, pardoned freed from, I think, prison by Jimmy Carter, and officially pardoned. Her sentence was commuted by Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton pardoned her. So that's one example, a pretty prominent example of Stockholm Syndrome. Mm-hmm. Again, not very exciting and fun, but something we can relate to.
Sure. So
something that I enjoyed researching this was not necessarily Stockholm Syndrome, but some of the other syndromes that were listed out there with that. So one example of the inverse, when the abductors begin to like their captives, is something called Lima Syndrome. that occurred.
Peru, Lima, Peru.
It came in Peru. That's right. When a Peruvian left-wing communist group attacked and seized a Japanese ambassador's residency. So I did some research on this. The event happened in 1997. Not seeing so much how the captors did that. That seemed to me to be a little bit of an excuse to cover up for the communist group, whose nickname is Marta, and also in that's the Spanish abbreviation. In English, it is the Tupac Amaru Revolutionary Movement. And in case you're wondering, that is who Tupac Shakur is named after.
Interesting.
So he's got that going for him.
Yeah. And so then MARTA, that's the Metro Atlanta Rail Transportation Authority.
It could be.
No, it is. I've been on the MARTA many times.
And maybe it started from Tupac's communist group.
Yeah.
The other syndrome that I really liked was something called London Syndrome. And that is the opposite in the sense of the captors the hostages not taking well to their to their holders and fighting back. And this comes back to an incident in London in 1980 where the Iranian embassy in London was taken over by a radical Iranian group. And over a 6-day siege, the captors continued to fight back, including a hero, Police Constable Trevor Locke, who kept his cool, held his weapon the entire time, was able to be taken hostage and not let them know that he had his weapon. And at the time when finally, after 6 days, when the Special Air Service attacked to free the hostages, Mr. Locke was able to use his weapon at that time and also tackle one of the leaders who was going to kill a Special Forces soldier coming in there.
That's amazing. So I feel like there have been a bunch of movies about that.
Yeah.
And London Syndrome is way cooler than Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, it sounds cooler. And that sounds like at least 3 Chuck Norris movies came out of that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of them, and they're probably all Chuck Norris movies.
So in conclusion about Stockholm Syndrome originates with a hostage situation that occurred in Stockholm, Sweden in 1973. In case you're really interested in this, the bank is now a hotel that you can stay
So
at.
do people go there as tourists to stay in the hotel that Stockholm Syndrome was?
I accidentally found about this last night watching a travel show where the people stayed at the Nobis Hotel in Stockholm.
Really?
It's a luxury hotel you can stay at. So any, our true crime fans out there want an excuse to go to Europe, you can do that. And something that's also important too, even though Stockholm Syndrome is used a lot and sounds very fancy and psychological, psychologists, this is not an official term. The American Psychiatric Association does not include Stockholm Syndrome in its list of mental disorders. So it's something a little bit of more pop psychology.
I think if I can for a minute, I don't. This doesn't seem. I think it's something that as I get older, it makes total sense to me. I remember hearing about this when I was younger, and going, I don't get it. Like if you're kidnapped by somebody, it makes no sense that you would identify with them. But so I've been listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, called Blueprint for Armageddon, about World War I. And they've been talking about how the forces, and this isn't Stockholm Syndrome, but you have infantry on, I don't even know if they call it infantry. You have soldiers on one side, you have soldiers on the other side. They're out here in trench warfare 24/7 for like months and years. Right. And it's awful. They're fighting over the same, literally 100 yards for years. And it's just a meat grinder. And over time, they start relating to each other better than they do their superiors, because humanity is going to connect with humanity. Right. There are exceptions to that. And that's when, if you truly believe the other person's evil. So if you got captors that are truly evil, you're not going to probably get the Stockholm Syndrome, which is obviously, like I said, not a real thing, not a real diagnosis, but it makes sense to me. So well, that's good. I would have thought it was a much older route to that. So I'm very surprised that it just came in the 70s.
And I think it's something too that I think I was the same with you when I was younger. Like it just didn't make sense. And the older I get too, you kind of understand survival instincts and things that you'll do what you got to do to survive and to get through. And if you got to become, somehow mentally decide that you care for these people to get through, so you also don't break in your head too. Which
it's a survival tactic, and I do think that it's just the person it just depends on the situation. I've always thought about it as, I don't know if it was the movie The English Patient, which I actually did watch. Oh. Yeah, and I think I watched it one year because I think it did win Best Picture. Yeah. What did it beat? It beat something really good, right? I'll have to look it up.
Anything it beats better than that movie.
Well, I remember when Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan. To me, it'll never be worse than that. But The English Patient beat something else awesome, which I'll figure it out later. But it seems like that happened in that movie, but I always thought of it as like some injured soldier. So I always thought about some old war, and the nurse is taking care of the injured soldier, and they have a bond or whatever. But I will think about it differently after now hearing the actual origin of it. So cool. I like it.
All right, let me take a quick break. Are we running?
We never stopped running,
Never stopped. All right, cool.
Speaking of never stopped running. Actually, never mind.
Let me reload my coffee. And
I'll go ahead.
Sorry about that.
For some reason, I thought that was a song by John Mellencamp, and I realized it's not, because I had a John Mellencamp story. Running Against the Wind? Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. What's the song Running Against the Wind? That's somebody.
Bob Seger.
That's who it is. Thank you. Okay. Bob Seger, nothing to do with the other guy I said.
Yeah.
John Cougar Mellencamp.
Oh, you want to get negative, Steve? Maybe we do like an anti-personal record. He's like the Jimmy Carter of people. He sucks ass.
I agree. He's horrible.
He sucks.
His music sucks, but he's worse. But
yeah, he's somehow worse in his music, which is pretty bad.
Which is saying something.
That's a high level of suck.
I've never purposefully think about, that's what makes me mad about radio stations or whatever. Mm-hmm. I have never on purpose listened to him.
Right.
I've never chosen to listen to him, but I've heard him so much. Why? I guess some people. Does anybody like him, or is it some sort of weird thing where other people think other people like him?
I think it's a bet. It's like a joke that went too far.
Right.
Because I don't understand. I can't see any situation where someone goes, you know what? This situation needs to put on some John Cougar Mellencamp.
Right.
That's the mood we're looking for.
Never. And
some JCM.
I feel like it's like he's trying to do an impersonation of a rock star.
Yep, that's exactly. There was some election a couple years ago where he grabbed a guitar and thought he was like the folk singer leader, and I'm like,
right.
Settle down, Jack and Diane.
Yeah.
Let's get back in your lane. You
right.
suck. You are
He's
awful.
Terrible. Has anyone ever bought actually, maybe in the 80s, a few people when he was like John Cougar, because that sounds cool.
Sounds cool to who?
Well, because he was, in the 80s, it sounded cool to a lot of
someone
waterbed guy. It sounded divorced waterbed guy.
Or like an 8-year-old who's making the buying decisions of music. Like right. John Cougar. Why not?
His music was so bad he had to change his last name. Then it still was so bad that he had to he doubled down and did both names. But somehow he's incredibly rich and famous. So
it's a shame. It makes me question the existence of God. That when John Cougar Mellencamp is still around,
I agree.
He's awful. All right, positive Steve. So Sweden has given us some other things other than a post-traumatic stress.
If John Cougar Mellencamp was your captor,
I'd kill myself.
You get London syndrome in
I would be charging. I'd find out who is the most armed leader of the hostage. Just shoot me now. Yeah. Just kill me. Make it quick. And even if not, just make sure I'm dead.
Hey,
even
man,
if it takes a little bit.
Got some food for you. Sucking
on chili dog. Shut
up.
Okay. I fucking hate John.
All right, what's going to cheer you up? What can we talk about?
Okay, I'm going to talk about some things that'll cheer me up. So, some other contributions that Sweden's made over the years. Going to list a few. The Nobel Peace Prize. Which is good. Haven't had peace yet. I thought when Barack Obama got it, as soon as he was in office, we'd have world peace. Didn't take.
I did too. I was hoping for that.
I was like, man, he's just here. He's wrapped it up. GPS.
Okay, I can get down with that.
That's pretty good. Celsius. as opposed to Fahrenheit, which I really, frankly, it's kind of like the metric system
Here's
of
the
temperatures
deal.
for me.
Let's call a spade a spade.
You can't say that.
Yeah, you can. We established that.
Nope, that was pot and kettle black.
Oh, you can't say spade.
Yeah, I haven't researched that.
Okay.
Slate.com's on their way here right now.
So I'm gonna just if you're not supposed to say that, sorry. But what I was gonna say though is objectively the Celsius whole scale and the metric system makes more sense.
Yeah.
But America.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly.
And I'm fine with Fahrenheit and I'm fine with inches because you know why? We're America. We do what we want. Right.
So Celsius, maybe not. I'm finishing strong though. Tetra Pak. You don't know what that is. But I'm going to explain what it is. You get a carton of milk?
Yeah.
You know the whole when you unfurl it?
Yeah.
Sweden.
Oh. So the whole okay. Oh, the carton of milk. So like the one you get in lunch in elementary school. So it's not like you twist off the top.
Right.
It's that
thing.
Okay.
Sweden. Finishing strong.
That's amazing.
Zippers.
Oh, well now you got me. Is YYK on your zipper? Yes, it's from Sweden. I hope so.
And then finally, perhaps their greatest contribution which leads to our next idiom, the band ABBA.
Oh, hell yeah.
ABBA, who has sold 370 million albums just between 1972 and 1982.
Rightfully so.
One of the biggest economic forces in Sweden, and they also have a museum in Stockholm. So
one more reason to go.
One more reason to go visit
Stockholm.
So
let's I'm going to let you. I'm not going to steal any of your thunder on ABBA.
Before I get into that, would you like to discuss the new Speaksies podcast, Personal Records?
Oh, I would love to, Steve. Thank you for bringing that up. So gosh, we do have another Speaksies podcast called Personal Records, and we talk about albums. So nobody's done an ABBA. But
I haven't done mine yet.
And I think so. Steve's going to come on and do his record.
I'm still eliminating. So ABBA's greatest hits.
Yeah.
Potential option.
I'm down.
You still haven't told me which Spice Girls album you prefer.
Spice World.
Okay, good. So that's on the list. I think that's a given.
By the way, speaking of, I'm going to go on a tangent here for a minute. There's nothing wrong with Spice World. First of all, there's also nothing wrong with like Hanson. But I remember back in, a long time ago. In the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, you were very proud, and you may or may not remember this, that you had never heard Bop. You don't remember this?
No, because...
Oh, it was you. It was you.
It wasn't me.
No, it was you. It was at the Wingate Hotel, and Bop was playing. It may have been a throwaway thing you said, but I just remembered it. Because it was like playing at the hotel. You're like, oh my God, I've never heard that song. I'm keeping my streak alive and not playing it, but no.
It actually wasn't because Ryan was super into that song, and I've heard that song a million times. You know what I think it was? It was Kelly Clarkson. I had never heard of Kelly Clarkson. Would that have been around the first time?
I just so specifically remember you saying you had never heard of Bop, but it doesn't matter. Let's not get it. I mean, I don't know who else it would have been.
The reason I'm standing up for it because I heard that Ryan had like a single, and I've heard it a million times.
Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, you would know better than I do.
Unfortunately,
it's weird. It's weird how that works, but maybe it was Adam because it wouldn't have been anybody else. I can't think of anybody else that would have said that. It's a very something that you would say, but all right. So go on then. Spice World. We were talking about Spice World.
Yeah, and now back to one of Stockholm's and Sweden's great contributions to Western civilization, the band ABBA.
Yeah.
So a little ABBA background before we get to our idiom.
Please.
ABBA consists of 4 members, the 2 B's, Benny and Bjorn, who were married to the 2 A's at one point in their life. Bjorn was married to Agnetha Flotskog, and Benny was married to Annefrid Lindstag. Annefrid is better known as Frida.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll talk a little bit about her post-ABBA career is a little bit different in a good way.
Is Frida the hot blonde or is she the hot brunette? Okay.
Yep.
Hot blonde. Yeah.
So, and her contributions to the world were more than that. So
she could have retired just by being
Yeah,
Frida.
but she did. But she didn't let it. So make sure I come back to that because that's
Please
important
do.
how she concluded. So, ABBA first breakthrough was during the 1974 Eurovision Music Contest.
Oh,
That have you ever heard of that?
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's something that I've always been aware of, and during my research, I thought that maybe this would be a chance for me to learn about other great bands or stories that came out of that. Frankly, not really too much has come out. The only people I recognized were ABBA and Miss Celine Dion.
Well, okay.
That. And I liked my Celine Dion accent. I think was spot on for that.
Okay.
ABBA's first great success came with a Eurovision song that they entered, and they won the contest in what year was it? 1974.
Yeah.
Name of song, Waterloo.
So Waterloo. A lot of
bringing
baggage
it together.
There. Yeah.
A lot of baggage. So brings us to our next idiom, meet your Waterloo.
Okay. I like this. I like that as an idiom.
Yeah. I like it. It's got ABBA and Napoleon. So we get a little
absolutely
Napoleon action.
I'm loving this.
So Waterloo is, there's a lot of Napoleon talk. We could almost have another episode. I'm looking for more Napoleon related things because the guy, everyone knows his name. He's got a pretty big history.
Yeah, and it makes me think about, didn't Bill and Ted, was it the first one? Yeah, it was the first one where there was like a Napoleon.
They took him to the water park.
Yeah.
So without getting bogged down too much in Napoleon's history, a very brief history of Napoleon. Napoleon rose up during, came to prominence during the French Revolution, where they decided they didn't want a monarchy.
Yeah. The guillotine was employed very
frequently.
Yeah.
And through that, he ironically started as a leader, then became an emperor.
Yes.
Which I think was a unintended consequence of people who want to get rid of royalty.
Right.
Conquered a lot of Europe, was deposed for 100 days in Elba, and then decided to make his last comeback, which ended in his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo.
Right.
So whenever you hear Waterloo mentioned, it refers to the 1815 battle outside the Belgian town of Waterloo, where Napoleon was defeated by the forces commanded by Duke of Wellington.
That's a British guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. Which, just as an aside, that's a pretty good sounding Duke name.
It's an amazing Duke sounding name. Yeah. And it makes me think about Beef Wellington. Yeah. All these guys, man, like the Earl of Sandwich. Yeah. It's weird. You have food named after you, and then that's pretty sweet. But then anytime anybody talks about you, they think about the food. So anyway, Duke of Wellington. I like it.
So when you say that someone's met their Waterloo, or faces, and it's one of those idioms that kind of is arranged differently. Sometimes it's somebody met their Waterloo. Did you meet your Waterloo? It's kind of put other ways. Basically, it means it's your final defeat.
Right.
It's the thing you couldn't overcome. Now, is this an idiom or a phrase that you ever use?
I've never used it, but I would love to start using it because what I like about it is it implies that you and whomever you're talking with has at least just a rudimentary understanding of history.
Yeah.
So I would like to start using it more, and it's but I don't see it's tough because I can't see myself at work. I always want to relate these to like work and go, oh, well, that's where he met his Waterloo.
Yeah. Well, one way to do that is maybe through ABBA.
So it's like a Trojan horse.
Yeah, try to bring that in, but that also they failed a little bit on the rudimentary history of it. The first lyric of the song, the first verse is, my, at Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender. Which he lost at Waterloo.
Right.
But did not surrender at Waterloo. So, but again, it's ABBA. They're bringing it. So anyway, meet your Waterloo is something I don't think I've ever used. I've kind of seen it more written and described in things, and it is, I guess I've seen it used in history or more kind of highfalutin things that I've read to discuss someone's demise or the consequence of their hubris.
It's really one of the biggest moments in history. I mean, is one of the most recognizable things. So I think we should bring it back. It's just, I'm trying to think of a scenario where you would use it.
I could see it used, maybe not with hubris, but as somebody like you see a great athlete that meets an opponent he finally can't overcome. Or maybe like a team where a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan is understaffed, and there finally comes, something that he can't.
I think that's right. I think it works well with like a last stand. So you hear like Custer's Last Stand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that almost gets used more. People will talk about somebody's last stand and they'll say, I think it's kind of hacky, but I've definitely read this or heard like sport. Now that you bring up the sports thing, and like Custer, his last stand, I was like, okay. Yeah.
So a couple
finally meets his Waterloo, I think works pretty well.
Yeah. So a couple uses of this in writing. One example is Arthur Conan Doyle was discussing it in one of his Sherlock Holmes books, where he said, "We have not yet met our Waterloo, Watson, but this is our Marengo," which is a reference to the Battle of Marengo in Italy, another Napoleon loss. And this is from Phrases UK, by the way, in case you wonder where if I pulled that bon mot. So Waterloo, seeing someone's face their Waterloo. Yeah. It's a final defeat. It's a battle. It's a culmination of something. You don't come back from a Waterloo.
All right, but so I think it's everyone knows. No, I won't say that everyone knows, but I think a lot of people know for it being a battle from the 17th century, the 16th, around that time. The fact that it's known by a lot of people now is pretty amazing. Waterloo is a great word to say.
Yeah.
So, we talk about the sonorousness or whatever of words. Saying Waterloo sounds good. So and it does make you think about a water park or Waterloo. It seems so happy. And it's also kind of happy because Napoleon, not really a great guy. I mean, he was like trying to take over the world with cannonballs. So
did a pretty good job at it.
He did a great job.
That guy had a pretty solid run.
He had a little bit of a complex.
It's almost like, Abba's run in the 70s to early 80s.
No, it wasn't that good. But I like the Trojan horse of bringing in Waterloo with Abba.
Yeah, well, I'm not done with Abba yet.
Oh, there's more. Right.
So to go back to Annie Fried Leadstan, who I probably pronounce her last name different every time I say it, better known as Frida.
The blonde one.
Yeah. Had, I'd say, one of the stronger post-Abba careers. Had a couple songs after Abba. A Phil Collins produced album called Something's Going On. Had a song called I Know There's Something Going On that you would recognize if you heard.
Okay.
And I've heard it before, and I never realized
What's the deal with Phil Collins? Like, how does he make hits? I mean, I don't understand Phil Collins. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole other that might be my podcast.
That was my Seinfeld moment. What's the deal with Phil Collins with absolutely no thought behind it?
That's a question many people have pondered.
Okay, sorry. So go ahead.
In addition to her having a solo song out there, she eventually became a honest-to-goodness princess.
Oh, how'd that happen?
Her proper title and name is Princess Annie Fried Siena of Reuss, Countess of Pluin.
What the heck is Pluin?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it's somewhere in Sweden.
I think it actually might be Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good for her. Glow up.
So it's somewhere. So anyway, and you go from being in a massive worldwide pop sensation.
First of all, you go from having a name that's a homonym for antifreeze, Antifreed. And then not only that, you go on to become part of one of the biggest bands of all time, selling millions of records. And then you become a princess. That's pretty cool. And I do like their music. I do play their music. I think I can't remember if this was on the podcast. So if I'm repeating myself, I'll cut this. But I've told you that ABBA's like my divining rod for what kind of audience I have in a DJ gig.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it's I play some basic stuff that everybody's going to like with, and then I play some ABBA. And if they look around like, this sucks, I know the kind of crowd I have. If they like it, I know the kind of crowd I have. And I'll give you a guess as to which kind of crowd I enjoy the most. And that is the ABBA crowd.
but throughout Waterloo, it's a good song. I've seen it deployed at some weddings, and it's when used properly.
I'll play it. I've never played that. I will play that.
So thank you, Sweden.
Thank you, Sweden,
for giving us a syndrome. But more importantly, thank you for the music. he sucks.